would just go on and on. And every time I would say something, they'd look at me like, what does this guy know? He's this young punk. He doesn't know anything. He's never been here. And so I used to just write, don't say a word, don't say a word. Just keep like writing it. And I just blurt out something else. They asked me to take 2 years to integrate Morris into Southwest. And within 6 months, I had it all done. I basically, joint fuel purchase, joint handling, joint everything was all done. And finally, Herb invited me to Ruth Chris Steakhouse in Dallas and said, this isn't going to work. You're driving everybody insane in this company. And I said, well, you're paying more for long distance per minute than we are. I'm just trying to get them to take our contract instead of your contract. And Herb, I got the peak fares and I got the thing integrated and I got this. He said, I know that's 5 months. It should have taken you longer to do all that stuff. And I said, all right, I'm out of here. I was in tears, but.
So you were supposed to stay at Southwest for at least 2 years, and within 6 months.
He kind of led me to believe that if I just minded my P's and Q's, that I would be a successor one day. That I could, follow in his footsteps. And obviously there were other people that wanted that job, and I was young, and but I was completely didn't fit into the corporate culture. My ADD was just raging.
So you were supposed to. This was going to be your employer, and maybe you would have succeeded Herb Kelleher as the head of Southwest, and you were basically were fired after like 5 or 6 months.
Yeah, in May. So I started in December, and they fired me in May.
Because he's a nice guy. He's been on our show. Like, I can't imagine him like yelling at you and saying, "Get out of my office." Did he let you down gently?
Oh yeah. He reached across the table and held my hands. I was crying, and he just said, it's just not going to work. He said, everybody, even the people that were your biggest supporters said you had to go.
David Neeleman may have been out of a job, but not for long. When we come back, how he built the framework that would become JetBlue. Stay with us. I'm Guy Raz, and you're listening to How I Built This from NPR.
Supporting WHYY, Montgomery County Community College. Montco's Workforce Development Division can help shift your career into high gear with training and professional development for individuals, businesses, and organizations. Learn more at mc3.edu. And the National Psoriasis Foundation, inviting you to their Stamp Out Psoriatic Disease event on June 5th, featuring dinner, drinks, games, and an auction. Learn more at npfphiladelphia.org.
When you make a gift of just $10 a month to WHYY, we'll send you a digital subscription to the New York Times as a thank you. You'll be supporting the public radio station you rely on every day and getting access to even more online content. That's a win-win situation. You can donate right now by visiting us online at whyy.org/support. And thanks. Support for NPR comes from this station and from CFP, Certified Financial Planner Professionals, committed to providing holistic financial planning, from taxes and investments to retirement and estate planning, in the client's best interest. Let'smakeaplan.org. And from Boston Beer Company, brewing Samuel Adams Boston Lager since 1984. Sam Adams Boston Lager uses hops from Germany's Bavaria region. Boston Beer Company, Boston, Mass., promoting responsible drinking.
Hey, welcome back to How I Built This from NPR. So it's 1995, and David Neeleman was just fired from Southwest Airlines. Southwest, the company he idolized. Oh, and he cannot work for a domestic airline for 5 years because of Southwest's non-compete clause. So David, he went home.
I went home, and I spent a couple days at home, and I feel like I can't do this. I'm not gonna retire. And so I went down and I rented a little office and started going to work every day in Salt Lake. And by this time, Dave Evans, who was my partner, had been going back and forth to Texas.
And Dave Evans, I'm guessing you guys worked together at Morris Air?
Yeah, and he came to me and he said, look, ticketless is the future. Why don't we build a system and sell it to all the airlines? So I said, well, how much money do you think it'll take? And he said, $1 million. So I said, okay, let's do it.
So, okay, you guys wanted to build a reservation system that you could essentially then sell to the airlines, but why wouldn't airlines just just do it themselves.
Well, they didn't. Airlines had these big mainframe computer systems they were using at the time, and everything was done on a flat file. And so by us building the system, we allowed people to have real-time information on all the reservations that were coming in. You know, we could tell them, you know, what the average fare was, what the load factor was on each flight, all the stuff that they never had before. And so it was a revolutionary change for the airline business at the time.
You ended up selling this company to HP, to Hewlett Packard, in 1998, and that's when you kind of, I guess, put your head down on the JetBlue idea. What I'm trying to understand is why. I mean, the graveyard of failed airlines is huge, right? Like Trump and Laker and People Movers, or whatever it was called, TWA, Pan Am, People Express, yeah. Like, what did you think the world needed? Like, there were a bunch of airlines. Southwest was thriving. Like, what was it that you thought you could contribute to that industry?
Well, I thought that a couple of things. Southwest had a rule book that they didn't really violate at the time. One of them, that they never flew into kind of congested airports. They didn't want, because on-time percentage and, you know, turning airplanes in 10 minutes was just so important to them, that they didn't want to go to New York, for example. Boston, they weren't in Boston. They were in Providence, and so they kind of skirted around airports. They never went into SFO. They were in Oakland. When it came time for me to found, you know, JetBlue, I wanted to find a place that I could start in an area where I knew there was a lot of people. I studied the New York travel market, and so I thought, well, this is a perfect place to put an airline.
You thought you could do a discount airline that would fly to places that discount airlines were not flying to?
Yeah, where Southwest Airlines wasn't. And, you know, you got to remember at the time, too, all the carriers, these legacy carriers, had accumulated so much stuff. I mean, pension programs, and, you know, the customer service at that time wasn't very good. And
yeah,
we wanted to bring humanity back to air travel. You know, and this is something that I've kind of learned over the years. Number one is you don't just go start an airline for the sake of starting it. You have to have a reason for being. But also, just because you're in a place where no one else flies or can fly, doesn't mean that, you know, you can treat people poorly. So let's treat people awesome. Let's find a place that nobody else flies. Let's fly between routes. And so layering all this, I always say to my team, guys, too much overkill is never enough. Let's just keep layering it on, make it better and better and better.
So that 5-year period of that non-compete would ended, I guess, around 98. At that point, right when it ended, is that when you announced that you were founding JetBlue? Did you announce that publicly?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't sell a ticket, but I could do everything but. So, you know, I had the reservation system ready to go.
So you were already ready to go. You could start working on it even before this non-compete ended.
Yeah, I mean, we started flying in February of the year 2000, so we were working hot and heavy. I moved the family to Connecticut in July of 99, and we were, you know, full bore, had raised $135 million, and so we were ready to go. You guys were profitable pretty quickly, I think, and at a difficult time after 9/11. And one of the things that you did a lot, you'd fly in the planes all the time. You'd make an announcement that you were the head of the company, and then you would sit on the planes and serve snacks and help clean the planes. Was that a shtick or was that real? I mean, what was that about? No, I just really wanted to stay in touch with our customers. I really wanted to hear from them. You know, not only would I get up and introduce myself, but I would also say I'm going to come by and serve snacks. But I also want to hear from your experience with our company. I want to know what we did good, what we did bad, you know, what we can improve on, you know, any ideas you have for us. And then I had, you know, other people in our company doing the same. I just think it's just incredible to stay in touch with your people. And then, you know, those working the flight see that you care.
One of the things, I mean, Southwest, their staff is unionized, and you did not have a union staff. Why? I mean, did you feel like, I don't want to deal with unions, that's going to just drag us down? Was there a reason behind that?
You know, I always thought, if our people need someone else to come tell us how to treat them, then that would be pretty tragic. You know, one of the questions we ask in the interview process is, in your career, in your life, can you give us some examples of where you left your area of responsibility and helped somebody else out in another area? Because that was really something that we thought of, and it's amazing how many people couldn't come up with one single example of how they could chip in and help out. We didn't hire a pilot that had 15,000 hours, and he called me up screaming, I can't believe you would hire me, I'm an experienced pilot. So I went to the interviewers, and they said, well, he couldn't come up with one single excuse of anything he's ever done to help anyone other than himself. So it was a cultural thing, and building the culture was important.
So JetBlue is like riding high, it's profitable, it's a darling of Wall Street, customers love it. And then comes Valentine's Day 2007, the biggest ice storm in the Northeast in like decades. And what happens?
Well, it wasn't just an ice storm. It was the FAA had come out with this regulation that year. It was only that year. It was only in 2007 where they said if there was what they called ice pellets in the air, then you can't take off. They reversed it the next year. They didn't have it any time before that, and they haven't had it any time since. So it was just one of these convergence of events where our planes got out to the runway to take off. They called ice pellets. Planes were stuck. Planes were landing. And then this storm moved in. We had people stranded on airplanes. We couldn't get them back to the gate because
for like 8 hours, right? People were sitting in planes.
8, actually more. I think one of them even 10 hours. And so it was, it was a disaster, and it was something that, and then, Humpty Dumpty was all over the place, and it took us a long time to recover. And I was, well on the way to fixing it, and making sure that it would never happen again when, a couple months later, the board asked me if I would just step up to be chairman and, kind of let the COO at the time be the CEO.
How did you feel about that?
It was, here we go again, and now it was Herb and this, but it was different with this time, obviously. This was my baby.
This was your baby. I can't imagine that wouldn't be devastating.
Yeah, it was. I had to be held accountable, and and I was taking responsibility of it. One of the board members kept saying to me, quit apologizing. We don't like you to apologize. I go, why not? And I said, because it shows a sign of weakness, or whatever. So I wrote a letter to the crew members when I left, and I just said, I've always taught you that it's not really what happens to you, it's how you deal with it. And so, I've always had this lifetime dream to return to Brazil and make a difference in the country of my birth. And I'm going to do it. So I'm going to leave the board, and I just want you to remember all those values, and treat each other well. Wished everyone the best, and I was gone.
We can stop this podcast now and end of story. You start another airline. You start a brand new airline in 2008 called Azul in Brazil. By the way, which means blue. Was that deliberate? Did you call it Azul deliberately?
Yeah, I did. It was, I think, I obviously have great affection for JetBlue, and Azul was the closest thing, and Azul's, blue in Portuguese and in Spanish, so I had made some trips down there, and I had this thing tucked away in the back of my head about going back to Brazil and making a difference, and that I had when I was a 19-year-old boy. And one of the things that was amazing to me is how few people were traveling in Brazil. And I determined that there were two major reasons. Number one, the service just wasn't good as far as non-stops between cities. The 25 largest cities in Brazil only had non-stops about 20% of the time. But then there were 50 cities that had no service that needed service. So I thought, well, I'll go to Brazil, I'll buy Brazilian-made airplanes, which are a little bit smaller, have a lower trip cost, and then I'll start flying to all these cities that nobody flies to, and it will be a big success.
And it happened. I think it's the third largest airline in Brazil today.
It's the number one airline in terms of daily departures.
That's 10 years. 10 years after you left?
Just 10 years.
Did you, you must have learned so many lessons along the way, right? At Southwest, you were, they fired you after 5 months and doing about it, and then, JetBlue, obviously the board decided that they wanted somebody new there. When you structured Azul, did you make sure that could not happen to you again?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can't be fired at Azul.
It's privately owned.
No, it's public. It's on the New York Stock Exchange. Quality control, yeah.
So you made sure that could not happen again. Fair enough. Which is part of like learning lessons along the way.
Absolutely.
At 22, 23, you were totally broke. You like reached these heights, and then you were broke, and then back to working at your grandfather's store, and then all these amazing things happened to you in your life. How much of that do you think is because you were really smart and hardworking, and how much because of luck?
Well, I think obviously you have points of luck, but I think you make your own luck to a great degree. You know, ADD, and I tell people this that have ADD, embrace it. It's you, and it's who you are, and take all the good from it. And my form of ADD I have an ability to just look at a situation that's very complex and simplify it and say, let's just do it this way. And it drives my teams crazy because they're like, no, it's not that simple. I'm saying, yes, it is. Just go do this, this, and this, and we'll have it solved. And so, you know, sometimes it's not that simple, but, you know, that's just who I am, and that's how I'm wired. I can look at a situation and, you know, I can see solutions. And so, whether if it was in the airline business or any other business, I think I would have probably had that skill. But you know, certainly the airline business has been my ticket to a lot of exciting times in my life. And there's nothing like sitting in the cockpit, landing an airplane at a 4,800-foot runway in Rio de Janeiro to give you the thrill, and knowing that that's your plane and your people and you have the customers on board. It's quite a thrill.
That's David Neeleman, founder of JetBlue. On top of building one of the most successful airlines in Brazil, David now wants to launch another airline here in the U.S. It's still in the planning phase, but the project has a name that kind of fits David himself, Moxie. Hey, thanks for listening to the show this week. If you want to find out more or listen to previous episodes, you can go to howibuiltthis.npr.org. This hour of How I Built This and Planet Money was produced by Carrie Thompson. I'm Guy Raz, and you've been listening to How I Built This from NPR.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from the NPR Wine Club, where every bottle tells a story and NPR shows become wines, like All Grapes Considered Malbec, available to adults 21 years or older. Learn more at nprwineclub.org. And from C3. C3's AI software suite enables organizations to use artificial intelligence at enterprise scale to solve previously unsolvable business problems. Learn more at c3.ai.
Supporting WHYY, Drexel University's LeBeau College of Business. Drexel LeBeau's flexible MBA and specialized MS programs combine their signature employer-driven philosophy of experiential learning with customizable graduate minors available across Drexel University. LeBeau's MBA and MS programs help transform students into the next generation of leaders. Fall 2019 Round 2 application deadline is April 15th. To apply, lebeaugrad.com.
This is WHYY-FM Philadelphia, WNJN FM 89.7 Atlantic City, WNJZ 90.3 Cape May Courthouse, WNJB FM 89.3 Bridgeton, WNJM 89.9 Manahawkin, and WNJS FM 88.1 Berlin.
Milk Street Radio is just ahead on WHYY. Good afternoon, I'm Mary Cummings Jordan. It's 12:59. Stay tuned.
This is Milk Street Radio. I'm your host, Christopher Kimball. Today we travel the Trans-Siberian Railway with writer Sharon Hudgens, and we talk about her time in post-Soviet Vladivostok, where the tap water smelled like sewage, electricity was on and off, and a house spirit lived under the stove.